Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today we're going to take a look at a case of second-degree emotional trauma that Matsumoto subjected me to this week. And we're going to look at three of the great good boys of history, and that would be, of course, Barry, the first St. Bernard of St. Bernard's Pass in Switzerland, Balto of Alaska, the United States, and of course Hachiko of Shibuya, Japan. Now, this is a show I usually do manga and anime reviews with a side of literature. Why am I here talking about dogs today? Well, Chapter 68 just dropped, and there will be some minor spoilers for Chapter 68 in this of Kaiju number 8. So if you don't want any spoilers, you can go check out the links below the video to get a copy of my book, Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, or Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote. And in those books, one of those stories is in fact about the same topic, about Hachiko, but that's just because Hachiko is a great topic to discuss and comes up in a lot of books. Now, I'm 90% sure that I've got all of the silly sentimental crying out of my system when I was researching this video, getting my facts straight. But where am I going with this video? Alright, so Chapter 68 dropped of Kaiju number 8. And one thing about Matsumoto is Matsumoto does not waste space. Matsumoto sticks very strictly to the rule that every panel must be doing at least 3 things. So all of Matsumoto's chapters are packed with information. But usually we only get 23 pages, and we got nearly 30 pages on here. And there was a lot of information packed into here. I was reading through this chapter, and every time I reread it, I see something else. For instance, on my first reading, I noticed something odd, that we get our first glimpse of the kaiju that are distinctly feminine. All the kaiju have been either completely androgynous or distinctly masculine up to this point, as far as I can remember. But we have 2 kaiju that show distinctly feminine traits. And I thought that was interesting. We have a kaiju shown displaying telekinesis. Then I noticed that the framing of it was interesting. And in another reading, I noticed that it was odd that the story references bear hunters, because I was not aware that bear hunting was a kind of popular club thing to do in Japan. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I just don't know. But like I said, there's 30 pages, they're all just jam-packed with information. And so I was flipping through, I can't even remember what website it was, but someone pulled up the picture of that distinctly feminine mutated ballerina looking type kaiju with all the brains that was in a specific location. You can tell it's a specific, and I say specific location because he pointed out the odd rounded triangular shaped building behind the kaiju that's in the intersection. Then this person pointed out that Kikoru was also one of the art pieces, showed Kikoru standing in the middle of that intersection with that building badly damaged. It's at a slightly different angle. You can see slightly different buildings, and the buildings are heavily damaged. Now, the art piece is not canonical to the story. We know this because her axe is, which it probably isn't being replaced because she's getting her mother's number 4 weapon, has been destroyed, and the building in this image is clearly not destroyed. So that art piece was clearly just conceptual, not actually canon in the main storyline. And that kind of got this image in my head. And it was floating around there. Then I went back and I was examining the page with the giant glowing white kaiju and kind of pondering over how many bears there were in Japan. And it turns out there's about 10,000 black bears, Asian black bears in Japan. They're their own subspecies. And so I'm like, okay, so maybe hunting clubs are more common than I thought they were. But I thought it was interesting because in this particular genre of Shonen Jump, bear hunting just isn't something that's mentioned. I've never seen it mentioned before. Then I really started studying the layout. Now, Matsumoto had to plug a lot of stuff into here. Every square centimeter of space on this page counts. And the main focus of this page is the kaiju, the giant kaiju. And would assume the person reacting to it. But the two side panels, the two secondary panels, aren't the person reacting to it. They're the hunter's dog reacting to it. Now, this is a trained bear hunting dog. It's going to have fairly good nerves, and we see it standing in front of its fallen master, making what effort it can to protect its master from this kaiju. This is a very good boy. Now, why am I focusing so much on this dog? Well, clearly this is a dog-themed video, so get used to it. So, you have here a bear hunting dog, a very brave dog, and it's got the strong body of a hunting dog, the broader muzzle of a dog that's going to be expected to use its jaws. It's got guts, and it's courageous, and is protecting its human. Okay, standard good boy stuff. But again, Matsumoto has dedicated 3 panels to showing this dog's reaction, 2 panels which are only showing the dog's reactions. So clearly, this dog, or its reactions at least, are very important to the story somehow. And I have a whole theory about the glowing white kaiju, but that'll be in its own video. I've got an entire script written up for that for next Sunday or a couple Sundays from now. So this is the mountain region of Numata City, Gunama Prefecture. So some mountainous region, you've got out in the middle of nowhere, Japan, high up in a mountain, and you have this good boy reacting to the kaiju, trying to defend his human. Now, watching how dogs react to a situation is a classic storytelling device. There's a famous murder scene in a mystery made back when the American cinema had to follow much stricter rules about showing violence. And instead of showing the actual murder, all they show is a dog responding to the murder, desperately trying to escape from the violence that was being done. It's a very, very impactful scene. So it could be that Matsumoto just wanted to dedicate this entire page to the effect that this kaiju caused, and that the effect, by expressing it through the reactions of the dog, it shows that the effect is on a very, very visceral level. That could be. But then, let's go back to that strange triangular shaped building that's already shown up twice in Matsumoto's artwork. Again, when the first time I read through this, I didn't pay too much to the details of where each kaiju had shown up. Location information is, in my experience, something that you go back and you mull over later when you're writing up your theories. But it says it's in Shibuya Ward, Tokyo, a very, very common place to show up in manga. It's like Central Park in New York, the Eiffel Tower in France. It is such a well-known place that just catching a glimpse of it places the entire series and puts it in context for the watcher. Shibuya Ward, Tokyo. But then we get more detail. A humanoid kaiju abruptly appeared at the scramble intersection of the Hachiko exit gate. And it wasn't actually until of the 4th reading that I caught the 3rd to last word, Hachiko. I'm like, nah, they don't mean that Hachiko, do they? So I got online and I did some research, and it turns out that yes, they mean that Hachiko. This kaiju appeared not just anywhere, but right in front of the famous train station where the famous Hachiko waited for his master for nearly a decade. Now, we are going to come to the story of the 3 great good boys. But first I want to discuss why Matsumoto might be integrating it. We will get into the story of Hachiko, but suffice it to say that this was a very loyal dog who at a young age lost his master, who was a doctor. And every day this young dog would follow his master into this train station, and the master would get on the train, and then the dog would patiently wait at the train station, not causing any trouble, until his master returned from the city. This was a breed of dog that was very famous, very intelligent, known for intelligence and loyalty. And the doctor, although fairly young, I believe the doctor was in his mid-50s. If I'm recalling the story correctly, he died of a heart attack while at work. And because it was a hospital, they took care of the body there. The body never went back to his hometown. And so his dog, Hachiko, waited at the train station day after day after day for his master to return. Various neighbors tried to adopt the dog, but the dog would always escape and return to the train station. Eventually, they built him a little house there, and friendly neighbors fed Hachiko, And after about a decade of loyal waiting, Hachiko finally passed away. And being the sentimental fangirl that I am, I can't get through this story without crying. But, as I said, it's a very well-known story. Hachiko is a world-famous dog. Movies have been made. But, Hachiko belongs to kind of this special subset of famous good boys that, while they are known worldwide, are super famous in their one specific location. And for Hachiko, that is Shibuya Station at the Hachiko exit. There's an entire plaza with a statue dedicated to Hachiko, and this plaza has specific cultural connotations. There's a mural there of the family of Hachiko family, dogs on the wall. It's a place where you join with your friends and loved ones. You meet up there to have fun. It's a very, from what I've been able to research, because I hadn't learned about this plaza. I knew there was a statue, but I didn't realize it was a whole cultural area. But apparently people go there, meet up with their friends, family, and loved ones, and to have fun. Now, given the themes of Kaiju number 8, given the goals of the main protagonists, because if you take into account what we know of the main protagonist's goals, you have Kafka. His goal is that his loved ones don't cry anymore, that his loved ones have fun. And Kikoru, her entire family, Shinomiya mom, Shinomiya dad, and Shinomiya Jr., all of their goals are to protect their family and loved ones. And their parents' goal was for their daughter to be able to have a good, fun life. So, given that this chapter was framed by the mental efforts of Shinomiya Sr., and then after Shinomiya Sr. has faded out, we get the chapter topped off with Kikoru going out to avenge her father and achieve her goals. I can't help but think that there is a thematic meaning to the repeated appearance of the Hachiko Plaza, Hachiko Scramble intersection, it showing up in the manga like this again and again. In the extra chapter art, we've seen Kikoru standing there with her battle axe in a combat position with the place in ruins. We've seen that mutated Balarina looking kaiju appear at the Hachiko intersection, and this entire chapter was literally framed with family. So it might be something as simple as the Hachiko intersection is providing a thematically appropriate background or centerpiece for this chapter. But I think we're going to end up seeing this intersection again during a battle arc where the goals for peaceful family interaction are brought to some sort of fruition. So what do I mean by that? I don't know, maybe there's going to be a battle here where Kikoru takes out an important kaiju, or perhaps Kafka does, but I don't think we're done with this one particular intersection. But, as I said, Hachiko, that is the story and the themes. But what about the others? Hachiko is the most famous of what I'm going to call the great good localized boys, and there are two more. So, Hachiko, Shibuya Station, Japan, famous for staying loyal to his master, waiting for his master to come home for 10 long years, which is pretty much the entirety of a dog's life at that point. The second great good localized boy is Balto of Nome, Alaska. During the mid-1920s, there was a little town called Nome, Alaska, and there were only 3 ways to get to this town. Hop on a boat, ride the boat in, hop on a plane, ride the plane in, or get a dog sled. There was an outbreak of the disease called diphtheria, and there was a treatment. There was a chemical treatment that was extremely effective at treating diphtheria. Without the treatment, the disease was fatal to children. With the treatment, it was not fatal. And the outbreak happened in Nome during a massive snowstorm. The boats wouldn't get there in time, and they were being battered by the storm. The planes couldn't take off, and the nearest source of the diphtheria antitoxin was 1,200 miles away in Anchorage, Alaska. And so the only way to get it there would be dog team. They put it on a train, the train took it as far as it could go, and then a team of relay volunteers was set up from the end of the train tracks to Nome, Alaska. There were many dogs and many men who helped in the relay race. But Balto was famous because he was supposed to do the second to last leg, but when they got to the final exchange, they found that the other musher was still asleep and the team wasn't ready. So the musher decided just to do the final leg on his own. So Balto did 2 of the legs at full speed, carrying the diphtheria antitoxin. And so Balto, his body was preserved, and there's now a statue of him in New York that's a major famous gathering place, just like the Hachiko intersection plaza. And as you can see with the images of the 2 bronze statues, they have been polished to a gleaming glow from all of the people who want to pet the statues of the good boys. So that's Hachiko, Balto, and the third great good boy is older than either of them and comes from the 1800s in Switzerland. There is a pass called St. Bernard's Pass that's about 7,500 feet above sea level. In the winter, this is an incredibly dangerous pass, and historically a lot of people would die. A group of monks dedicated to St. Bernard set up a monastery at the top of the pass, and they made it their mission in life to care for travelers and also for hospitality to the travelers. They began breeding dogs, and as the 17th and 18th centuries advanced, it became an organized thing. They had human scouts, who would walk through the snow during the bad snowstorms, finding travelers who had gotten lost in the snow, and then bring them to the monastery for hospitality and life-saving care. As these travelers found out that if they went out with 2 or 3 dogs, the dogs could tramp ahead of them, break through the snow, and then would help them bring the travelers back to the monastery for the monks' hospitality. One dog born of these stables got the name Barry, and he became one of the most expert rescue dogs. Over the course of his life, he's believed to have saved no less than 40 different stranded travelers, including one famous story where he was out on his own, found a boy trapped in the snow, managed to pull the boy up onto his back, and drag the boy back to the monastery. And Barry fortunately lived out a peaceful life of 15 years. And in his old age, he was carried, no one's sure why, but he was carried down the mountain and lived out the rest of his days peacefully in a little valley where he died quietly in his sleep. And in those years, he managed to sire many, many puppies, and thus began the famous St. Bernard line of dogs. Barry himself was much smaller and lighter than a modern St. Bernard. And as rescue team styles advanced, the St. Bernard was phased out for smaller, lighter dogs who were more easily portable by helicopter. But so those are the stories of the 3 great good boys. 3 specific dogs who were probably not very extraordinary as their own breed went. Each of them were just one of many dogs at the time doing the exact same thing. There were many loyal dogs following their masters to work at the same time as Hachiko. There were many other dogs. Barry was just one of the breed that the monastery was developing in St. Bernard's Pass to rescue people, but he was one of the primary genetic contributors to the line of St. Bernards. And Balto was just one half wolf, half husky, the same as many other dogs around them. But in their moments, they did something great, and they saved lives and came to be known as sort of they're the great good boys. One commentator was talking about why Barry is remembered as opposed to the other dog. He goes, well, probably because his is the body who is preserved in the museum. And likewise, Hachiko and Balto were also preserved, and you can see their what remains of their preserved bodies in the museums. And they have their statues in their localized place. So that is my essay on the 3 great good boys. One in Japan, one in North America, and one in Europe. Dogs that are known the world over, but are super famous, each in their own space. In Shibuya, it's Hachiko. In Nome, Alaska, it's Balto. And anywhere in Switzerland, if you say Barry, they'll go, oh yes, the dog. So, I'd love to hear any other stories. So, do you know of any famous great good boys that have a local reputation? If you do, leave them down in the comments below. Hit that like and subscribe button. And peace out, my wonderful viewers. Humans are weird. We took a vote, and humans are weird. I have the data. 2 books in a series of human absurdity. Go check out these short story collections. What will our little green friends think of us when we finally do make it to space? Find out the answer in 2 books of human absurdity. Humans Are Weird, We Took a Vote, and Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data. Available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and Google Play.